Hey guys, today we're working on getting this exterior buttoned up on the house, and we're gonna start by finishing off these overhangs. The first step on doing these overhangs, for me anyways, is putting up this F channel. If you can see that, looks like an F. Now, on some of these sections of the house, I put this F channel upside down, and some sections I put it right side up, and I'll explain to you why I'm doing that here in just a second. But before we start putting the steel up, I need to get our corners where the eave and the gable, or the eave and the rake, come together. I need to get that framed in so we can finish it off with the steel, both the F channel and the soffit. So let me show you the finished product, what we're going for, and I'll show you how I'm doing it. The front side of the house, and we have our F channel ran underneath our eave end here. And when you get over into this corner, we have to put some blocking in. I don't build the bird boxes that stick out on the end of the house. I kind of suck them back in and carry this wall through. So I'm just using 2 blocks of wood to frame that in and make it solid, so I can run my F channel here underneath the rake all the way out to the eave end, and I can finish this off nice. This is what that area looks like without any of the finishing there. So the first thing we need to do is build this little section out so we can run our F channel and close this end off. I'm underneath the eave end, and all I'm gonna do is get a measurement here. We're about 9.5 from the wall out to the back side of this fascia. So we need to cut a board 9.5 inches, and then we'll scribe our angle in on the side. Okay, we just cut our piece of 2x4, 9.5 inches long. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put a screw in through the fascia to hold my blocking. Now that the front side is secure, we're going to come in on the back side and put a little more blocking to stiffen that up. Okay, this piece is 8 1/4, and I know my roof is a 4/12 pitch, so I'm going to go to 4 on my common line. That'll get me the angle for the top. We've got 4 screws in this thing, and that's some pretty solid blocking. Now we need to bring this out to this wall. So we need to add a piece of our 7/16 OSB. Okay, the first thing I do with this F channel to make it a little easier on myself, I mark every 2 feet. And I take this pick, punch, whatever you want to call it, and just put a hole in the steel. So help me put the screws in when I'm up on the ladder. this first end, I'm going to trim 3.5 inches off. This is to fit it underneath that wood blocking that we just put in. Just gonna trim this off. Come in with my reds first. Come back with the greens. Cut the rib off. Then we're going to flip this over. It's going to allow us to bend that off. Come back with the reds. There we go. That'll allow us to slide that up underneath. Before we put our F channel up, we're just going to do a couple of marks. Just so we can get this stuff put in level. Depending on the manufacturer, you can get an F and J channel all built into one. For me, I'm putting the F channel in, and why it's okay to put it upside down, this is the unpainted side. The J channel is gonna go up right underneath, so you'll never really see this piece. When I have another piece that butts into it, I just do a butt end joint, again, because it's not visible. So just get a measurement here. I'm gonna go a little bit past this fascia on the porch. We're going to make it 40 inches and just cut it square off at the end. All right, so here's how I cut this. I'm going to come in with my reds, cut that. High rib on the green. This rib on with the greens. And then for the rest of it, we'll just bend it. This eave section is done, and we're up to where the porch ties in back this way. And what I need to do is trim a little piece of F channel in here, and I actually need to put some blocking on top of this because I don't want any kind of gap here where we can get bugs and critters up in that corner. So let's show you how we're handling this little oddity on our roof system. Made this little block here. We're going to drop it in on top of that fascia board. And we're just going to step it right up here, mount it there, and we'll put a couple of screws in, and that'll allow us to run our F channel back this way so we can cover this all up. And this time we're going to run the F channel right side up, and I'll show you why. This piece is going to slide right up in here, and what I need to do is notch this top part out, both there on this side and this side, so it'll slide up, and then as I run my soffit panels over, it'll have a slot to go into to end it into. There you go, that's how it's going to sit in there. So the soffit panel, which I don't have right now, will slide up into here, and then my fascia steel will tuck up underneath this as well. So this all will be hidden and protected from the weather. We have our F channel ran under the eave. Now we're going to go back up underneath the rake here and connect it to the top. This is the final product that we're looking at. We want to bring our F channel down around and wrap it around this fascia to give us a nice look. Let's show you how we're cutting that. Okay, so I know my fascia is 1.5 inches wide, so I need to measure back 1.5 inches. Using reds because I want to curl this side up, and it's going to be removed. Then we're going to come back with the greens. We're going to bend this off. Okay, and there's our tab that we can lay underneath. We'll bend that up and make it look nice finished. And there you go. That allows our panels to run right down to the fascia, and it'll make a nice finished corner just like we did on the garage. I'm gonna finish running the rest of this up, and then this side will be done. Okay, here is the F channel underneath the eave end on the porch. Connected it in here. We'll have J channel underneath that. The J will wrap around the fascia board all the way on up, and it'll hide all that. This will all be white. I think it'll look really nice. All right, guys. First half of the front porch is done. We have our F channel ran up underneath here. I want to show you how we're doing this because if you remember from the roofing video, these rafters set just a little bit higher than the truss. We have a 3/4 inch gap planned for our tongue and groove planking on the inside. So for the steel on the outside, we had to put a little backer board in there. I'll show you how we're doing that. We have our end there and our end up here. And we have yet to do our fascia. Once our panels, soffit panels come in, we'll get those in and get the fascia on, and that'll be all buttoned up on this overhang. So let's get going on this side. I'll show you how we're doing it. Okay, the first thing we have to do is get this furring strip up under our rafters on top of our truss here. so we have something to nail our F channel to. Okay, there's where our soffit is going to dead end into the ridge beam. And then this end will be covered up with the fascia steel that comes across. So it should be a nice look. Should be a nice finished look. Now we need to go down there and do the same thing and get where our soffit ends set on top of that beam down there. All right, there's our last piece for the gabled end. All done, both sides. Hey guys, I think we're finally to the point here where we can start finishing these overhangs and start making this building look a little prettier. We're using steel panels for our soffits, and they come in 12-foot lengths from Menards. I'm cutting them down myself. You save a little bit of money by doing that with a nibbler. More on that later. But I cut a panel up last night, so we have several panels to put up. I'm showing you how to do this. We're gonna go on the gabled end first. We're gonna start at the peak and work our way down. Solid panels. This is a sample of what we're working with here. The eave ends will be vented because our attic is going to be an unconditioned space. We have a ridge vent and then our eave vents. More on that a little later as well. But let's get looking at this rake or gabled end here and start getting it closed off. I'm going to do the best I can with this, guys. I can't have the camera up on the ladder and trying to put these panels in and using my crown stapler to get them fastened. We're using narrow crown staples, galvanized, to get our panels attached to the fascia board, and then it sits in the F channel on the backside. We're going to start at the peak, and that way when we put this panel up on the peak, you can bend it. We put this groove right on the peak, and then we start going down both sides like this. It makes it nice and easy, and we'll put our staples inside these ribs to hold each panel in. When you do this, make sure you cut your panels just a little bit short so they're not tight up there, because metal is going to expand and contract and you don't want to have oil canning underneath. Let's get to this. That kind of gives you an idea on how to put these panels up. It's really easy. The main thing I would say, just make sure your stapler is set to the proper depth. It's real easy to punch through the steel with the staples, so don't go too deep on your staples. Just get it in there nice and snug. So it takes some fine tuning. We need to cut some more panels. So this is a 12-foot piece here. We're going to start cutting some panels out of this, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. First thing we're going to do is mark these out. And I am going to mark them about 11 inches. You don't want your panels sticking out beyond your fascia board, because then it's going to hold the soffit steel out. So I cut them a little short. The nibbler is an easy way to do it versus tin snips. But I can't get all the way through the panel due to the hem on the end, and I'll show you how I'm tackling that. All right, so we have these little ribs that we need to contend with, and that's where it takes a little bit of practice with the nibbler, and I'm not perfect at it. Here we go. You can cut this pretty easily, so I'm just coming in here, getting a good bite, snipping it. And then I have to clean this end up as well for the next piece, so I just come back in, snip it off, and that's it. You'll have to open these hems back up just a little bit, so you just pull on it a little bit to open it back up because these slide into place and lock in there. We are down to the last panel on this side, and I want to show you this little detail here. It worked out perfect because this panel, I don't have to cut and trim it. It worked out exact to the end, but you need to take care of your fascia board here. Let me show you. So depending on how steep your roof is, you're gonna have to nub off the end of this. I have a 412 pitch, so it's not super steep, so there's not much to cut off, but the steeper you go, the more you're gonna have to nub off here to make this trim piece work around the corner. So let's take care of that, and then I'll show you how I'm finishing this detail here. We have this piece nubbed off, and we have our F channel. If you remember when we ran that down and beyond. So we're gonna go ahead and put our last piece of soffit panel in. On the other side here, we'll move the ladder around. Okay, and there's our final piece. We have it in. You can see how we ran the F channel around, and that's gonna cover that up. Then the fascia steel will go on the outside and cover this end piece up here. I'm gonna go around and put a couple of nails on this far end here to hold that in, but then the fascia will hold it up as well. And that's one gabled end complete. Soffit panels, we're gonna go down the other side, and then we'll start putting the fascia panels on. The gable end of the porch is no different than the gable end of the house. You can see we have our F channel right side up on these because it is going to show. And that's what it'll look like where it dies into that timber truss at the top. And then if you remember when we put our F channel, it dies into the ridge beam, and over top of the plate beam, it dies into that as well. And we have the other side done. Now all we have left to do on the side and the front here is get our fascia pieces up. Fascia trim is up on the first side here, running out of daylight. Sorry I can't get the camera up there. Holding these pieces by myself and getting them lined up and set. I just don't have a way to put the camera up there. I do want to show you fastening these fascia panels. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm putting the screws on the bottom side. They're small white screws. You can see it there, right in that rib. And that's why you don't put staples in every rib on those soffit panels. Leave room for your screws for your fascia. If you put your screws on the face of your fascia, you're gonna get oil canning. So this helps to kind of eliminate that. The corner I wrapped around, so you can kind of see how I wrapped it. And then this front piece will go right over top of that. We'll do that tomorrow. Get that side closed up. Maybe try to get this other side one more piece up yet tonight, but that's what we're doing. It doesn't take much to hold those fascia panels up. I'm using these little screws here. You can kind of see it's got like an auger on the end of it underneath the head. So when you put these in the bottom side, don't suck them up tight. Just let that auger the hole out and let it hold the panel. Snug it, but not over tighten so you don't get oil canning. It doesn't take much to hold those. You have your rake trim over the top that's holding the top side with a couple of screws, as you can see, holding that. So it doesn't take much, but it's kind of tough to do 12-foot pieces by yourself, but we're getting it done slowly but surely. Right here is my secret. Get yourself a pattern. This is a scrap piece we had left over from the garage. It's the same fascia steel, and I did a couple of bends and made a couple of cuts to try to fit it in there as nice as I can. And all I do then, when I'm ready to make my next cut, is lay this on top of my piece, trace it out, and I'm good to go. Don't know, there's probably a way to measure out and get everything and angle it and do the math and stuff, but for me, getting that, since I'm only doing 4 corners on the house, it's just as easy to get what I want, make a pattern, transfer it over to my pieces, get them up. This is the look I'm going for. The next piece will come up and we'll seam it right down here, and the bottom will come together with this right at the peak. We'll back that screw back off to put the next one in, but that's how I help with water control on the inside to keep it off these fascia boards. We have one more side to go, one more rake side, 75% done. This side is done all the way down. Right, let's get to it, get this last side buttoned up. If you follow along on the channel, you may remember the porch roof framing that we did and our ridge board, and we had to cut a long 412 for the ridge board to meet the main structure of the house, the main roof deck. And we used our carpenter square to do that. It's no different for this, except our porch is a 612 roof, so we're going into a 612, so we need to cut the long 612, which is done on your carpenter square. And we've cut that on this piece here. However, as we're sliding this piece back in there, you start running into things where it gets pinched, so we've had to modify it. So the best thing that I can say to do in a situation where you're doing your overhangs after the roof has been on and all your trims are on and you don't want to take all that stuff back off is just get yourself a scrap piece and just kind of wedge it in there and see where you're hitting. You can kind of see where we're rubbing. Looks like some of the ice and water shield we're rubbing up against, but we've got this cut now adjusted where I can slide it back in there. So we're going to go ahead and put a 12-foot piece up there, and then we should only have to put a smaller section because I think these are 17 feet, so we're looking at like a 5-6 foot section after that. So 2 of these pieces should get one side here, so let's get that done. Okay, that is about where we need to be. I'm off to the Texas race this morning, but I thought I'd give you guys a little look at some of the steel work I did yesterday on these corners. There's a little bit of steel origami, so to speak, but when you're doing this steel, you can get as fancy or as pretty as you want. I try to challenge myself a little bit and try to make things look as best that I possibly can. So here's a look at one of the corners where I had to fold some things around and get a little creative. So here's a look at where the eave meets the rake, and with those angled cuts I had to get a little creative, but I didn't want to leave a hole on the end, so you can see at the bottom where the 2 fascia boards meet, I kind of folded things up and underneath one another to make it look pretty and give me a nice watertight seal. So the side is wrapped around the front, and then this front side is over, and I bent the bottom tab up and tucked it up underneath so you can get a nice pretty look there on the end. Well, that completes the overhangs for the house. We have the fascia and soffit panels all up, so we're nice and tight, weather tight at the top. The next video is going to be the porch trim details. We have to do fascia on both sides, and then we have to run our soffit panels under this angled portion, which I've never done before, so that should be interesting. The other difficulty, I'll call it, on this porch is the front fascia steel with these timbers sticking out. We have to notch those out. However, I don't want to have to take the rake trim off the roof, so to be able to slide that stuff up underneath there while trimming out, making it look good on the timbers, is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I have to think about that for a little bit. The other thing I want to do is get a little better weatherproofing on the top of these timbers. They're getting full sun, full rain all the time, so I need to do something a little extra other than oiling these things to help preserve them. That's going to be on the next video. For today, I'm off to Texas, hoping for an HMS win, and we'll pick it back up when I get back next week on finishing up these porch details. I hope you stick around. That's all I have for you today. See you on the next video.